All right, here we go. This is Hawk Talk on Melrose. Don't know how this episode will go, but we are here today, day after the Iowa State game, losing 20-19. I'm still, I wouldn't use the word shocked, but just still annoyed by how everything turned out yesterday. Give credit to Iowa State for battling back, right? Their backs were against the wall, especially in that first half. We had them rattled. We had Rocco rattled, and credit to them to come into the second half and really not give up and just kind of keep, because they knew what Iowa's tendencies are like, especially towards the back end of the game when we're up. And they just kept kind of clawing, and they won the game. But I'm just annoyed by how that game turned out because we had every opportunity. And I think even Iowa State fans would agree. Like, we had every opportunity to just close that game up, whether it was in the first half, where you go into half up only 13-0, where it really felt like, man, we should be up by more than that. But then even in the second half, we had opportunities to kind of close the game out, and we just let Iowa State hang in there. And man, I love Kirk, but that is his one downfall, is it seems like we do this all the time. And sometimes it ends up not costing us, but then other times, and especially as of late, it just seems like it's been costing us games where, just lay the hammer down. What are we doing? But it's just a very painful game, a sucky game. It's a game that we like I said, we had no business losing, but once again, got to give credit to Iowa State too.
Yeah. Good morning, Collin. And to everyone out there, welcome to the Hawk Talk on Melrose therapy session. As that might be more what this is today between me and you, as opposed to maybe some of the X's and O's and stuff like that maybe we get into. I agree with you, man. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. Like, the overarching theme is just you play this style. And I said it after the game. It's like 9 times out of 10, maybe in the past it works under Kirk Ferentz. It's really hard to continue to really get to where you want to go and win these big games playing this way. And I said it, you play with fire, you're going to get burned. And I feel like we did that in the second half of last night's game. And I agree with you. I'm sick to my stomach. Like you said, give credit to Iowa State because they had to come back and battle from being down, and they sure as hell did that. But I will say, like, we hurt ourselves. Like, Iowa beat Iowa in this game. And I don't, not to take any credit away from Iowa State, but it's like you blew that game in historic fashion. Like, I think I saw, like, we hadn't lost a double-digit lead or 13-point lead going into the second half since 2014 against Nebraska. I mean, it's been a long time. And so This was the definition of blowing the game. And it's hard to stomach it because you had it, and it shouldn't have really been close, and lose on a game-winning field goal, 54-yarder. Give credit to that freshman, man. That's a hell of a kick. Wow. And it just crushed us all as Iowa fans in that stadium.
What we talked about after the game, I mean, you have NFL kickers that I feel like miss 50-plus yarders a decent amount, let alone
it's not a
college kicker in Kinnick. Yeah, it's a tough, and you saw earlier in the game, he missed one. Right now, he had the wind with him because it was coming out of the north, but still, that's a tough freaking kick. But the way that game started, man, it was as perfect as you could maybe write up, because even though we didn't score on that first drive, number one, I obviously wanted to defer, but we obviously lost the coin toss. And I felt kind of like, oh boy, probably going to get a 3-and-out. Well, no, we actually, something we've talked about for a long time, like sustaining drives. I think we got like 3 first downs on that first drive. That was huge. Even though we didn't score, you just kind of go down the field and you end up setting up shop at the 1-yard line for Iowa State. Great punt by Reese Dakin. And from the get-go, we made Rocco, like I said, look very rattled that first half. And then you get the ball back, and then Caleb Johnson didn't even have a guy touch him. That hole was so big. And you're up 7-0. And just that entire first half where we had countless opportunities. Those two, it's going to haunt me forever. Those 2 drives where we had the ball at the 1-yard line and at the 3-yard line. And why we didn't just go with Caleb Johnson, at least one of those drives where all 3 downs, just hand the ball off to Caleb Johnson. good things are going to happen because he's on fire this game. And what do? We elect to pass 4 out of the 6 times. And we can get into Cade McNamara, but that's just not good coaching there. And so far, like this year, like I've been decently pleased with Tim Lester, and I'm not trying to already like shit on him, but that was a bad, like you stop being cute there. We're at the 1 yard line. Caleb Johnson's just been a freak this game. Just give the ball to him. Because at worst, one of those drives we should have scored. We should have had at least 10 points out of those 2 drives, if not 14. And we should have went into half up 17-0 at least, or if not 21-0. And we just, credit goes Iowa State again, but man, you got to score at least one of those times, at least one. And I'm just giving them one. Yeah. But if not both, I mean, honestly, in all reality, both times, because if you're within the 3 yard line, you have to score. I think someone made a good point too. It's like in that situation where our defense was playing so good, one of those drives is a 4 down territory, even maybe, right? Instead of kicking a field goal, is a 4 down territory. Because if you don't make it, you have to have Iowa State start at like the 2 yard line. Well, we already seen what happened at the beginning of the game when they started at the 1 or 2 yard line, right? So I guess you could make the case there too. But regardless, so that is just not good enough. And you go into half, even though we're up 13-0, it just felt kind of like, man, Iowa State's loving this because they played an awful first half. I mean, that was an awful first half. Yet they're only down 13-0, backs up against the wall. They have no pressure right now. I mean, they're, going in this game, everyone kind of thought they were going to lose. And then the first half was the way it is. I think everybody just kind of counted them out. They loved where they were at. And I think the play that changed the entire game, you go into the second half and huge 3-and-out by Iowa's defense, because usually that first drive, you make your adjustments at halftime, and most times like offenses kind of put together something. No, we get a 3-and-out. Huge. Not only that, but their punter absolutely shanked it. We get the ball at the 40 yard line, at their own 40 yard line. And even if we just kick a field goal on that drive, make it 16-0. If not, I mean, if we score it, it's over at that point. But even if you kick a field goal, huge, run the ball, right? But what do? We act cute, and Cade McNamara threw an awful pass. I don't mind the play call because in hindsight, like if it would have worked, we would have loved it, right? But horrible throw by Cade and interception. And that gave Iowa State a breath of hope. Like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what we needed. We just needed that one play. And what do? They go right down the field after that. It was like, because our defense just got a 3-and-out. Okay, they're on the sideline. Oh, nope, helmet's back on. Cade just threw an interception on the first play of the second half. And it just gave Iowa State that, like, okay, we're fine. And you take that away, man. Like, our defense was playing so good before that. It just gave Iowa State that hope. And it almost felt like when that happened, and I think even Colby looked at me, he's like, Iowa State's going to score in this drive, because usually this is what happens, like that fluke drive where they turn, we do something stupid. We're going to let them go right down the field. And sure enough, they did. They went right down the field. And that play right there, like if we score on that drive, you don't do anything stupid. Even if you had to punt the ball again, like let's say we go 3-and-out, but you have to punt the ball and they have to start at like the 10 or 5 yard line again. That was a huge play.
100%. That's the play that changed everything. You mean that's literally what sparked their offense. And there's a lot to unpack there. I mean, like you said, you've got the opportunities inside the red zone from the 1 and the 3. Inexcusable to throw the ball that many times if you're Iowa. Like Tim Lester, I love you, but that's inexcusable. Caleb Johnson has been gashing, you saw how many times, even the ability to get more yards than he should have, right? When he was stuffed, but he was churning his legs and getting 5 to 7 yards. That is what you need at the goal line. That's hard to stomach. That's hard to stomach, those play calls, because also like Cade was struggling through the air. I know he started off really good, but that second half he was struggling and like I know, like I don't know, just he was off yesterday. He was not good, and to throw that many times down there when it's already condensed, when it's already going to be tougher to throw the ball down there, it didn't make sense to me. And it's not like Caleb Johnson wasn't going off. Like you said, he was a beast yesterday. And to throw the ball that many times and to like not have him in there and running with Kamari after Caleb had been so hot early, like that was questionable in my opinion. I I don't know what we're doing. Like I don't get it. And that's super frustrating. And then yes, Cade McNamara cannot throw the ball. It's not that he just turned it over. It's he was rolling to his right and was so off platform and threw across his body back left. I don't know what we're doing. Like I don't know. And what was weird is because I was sitting there, it really didn't when he was rolling right, it really didn't look like any of the routes were like crossing to the right as well. It looked like a lot of the routes were to the left, which confused me. Number one, why like there's nothing, in flow to where he's going. And the fact that he actually still threw the ball when he shouldn't have is concerning because you've been here now so long, you're experienced, you can't like at the end of the day, you just can't turn the ball over. You want to play conservative, you want to play this style of football, yet we had two turnovers. And I know some people are not like making it that big of a deal, but I actually think going for two when you're trying to play conservative, when you're trying to play not to lose, and then you go for two and the play call itself is horrible. You don't get it. We're trying to chase points when it's like, dude, just take the extra point. Like it all was so confusing to me. I guess I know I'm rambling here. It's just confusing. You play not to lose, you play conservative, but then you go for two. You to me, you can't have it both ways here. And that backfired completely.
Yeah. Yeah, that 2-point conversion, like looking back on it, I mean, obviously now, yes, it's easy to say like, man, why did we go for two? But if we would have converted, it would have made Iowa State, okay, you have to score 2 touchdowns. So it just, I don't know. It's so hard to really say one way or the other. But at the end of the day, like if you would have told me before the game, hey, by the way, Caleb Johnson, 187 yards rushing, I don't say, okay, do we win this game? I say, how much do we win this game by? Yep. If your stud running back is rushing for 187 yards, that's what I ask you, because that was the game plan going in. And that's really where I felt confident, especially after watching North Dakota gash Iowa State last week in the running, and then seeing us being able to run the football against Illinois State. I really felt like, okay, if we can just run the football good, even if it's kind of a low scoring game, kind of a boring game, I think we walk out of Kinnick with the dub. And with 187 yards, like we have no business losing that game. But it really comes down to, once again, Cade McNamara just, I don't know, man. I'm starting to lose a lot of patience with him. I gave him the benefit of the doubt, going into the year, although there were times during, camp where, we were kind of talking, we were hearing, about he was struggling a little bit. Sullivan looked better. And to me, I was like, I just let the best person play. But I'm starting to wonder if Cade's just, I don't know, man. I just don't know if he's the guy. I think he's, quote unquote, I hate saying this, but it almost seems like he's just kind of washed from his back-to-back season-ending injuries. He has a noodle arm. He can't throw the ball very hard or long. I mean, you saw that on that Hail Mary. He couldn't even get to the end zone. And he has no running ability. Now, yes, he can maneuver a little bit. And if he really has to take off and run, he can. But there's no threat. Like, you don't have to you really don't have to game plan for him running. And actually, a couple times yesterday, there was times where I felt like he was better off to run and he chose not to, and he tried to throw it. And so he just 99 yards. Like, are you kidding me? Just not good. And watching the replay today, or I watched the highlights, he had multiple times. He had like Reese Vanderzee on a wide open throw late in the game. It was an RPO, and he just threw a bad ball to him. And then the one I don't think is being talked about, that one to Caleb Brown. Caleb Brown had his guy beat. If he throws Caleb Brown in stride, that is a touchdown. That is literally a touchdown. If not, it's a long play, and we're setting up shop for at least a field goal. But he underthrew him, of course, because once again, I just think Cade's arm is not very good. He has like a noodle arm. And he underthrew him. It should have been intercepted, honestly. But you saw Caleb Brown visually upset after that play because he knew, like, he had his guy beat. He throws the ball better there. That is a touchdown. Game over. Because at that point, I think it was 19-14 late in the game. You score there. It's 26 to, it's over. The game's over with. So it comes down to that. It comes down to, once again, the play calling, obviously inside the 5-yard line. It comes down to Kirk Ferentz not managing the game well. I still don't understand the delay of game at the end of the game, where I understand some people might, well, it's 5 yards. No, I don't care, especially with a freshman punter. Those 5 yards are vital. And what's 1 second going to do? Call a timeout with 1 second left on the play clock. What is that going to do? That 1 second. Instead, we choose a delay of game, and 5 yards is a lot of yards. Like, I'm sorry, it just is.
With now, Iowa State not having any timeouts either. Yes, 5 yards matters.
Exactly. And so those 5 yards, I mean, instead of them starting at the 20-yard line, they start at maybe the 15-yard line. And I know it doesn't work that way, where it's like, okay, if you go up 5 yards, you're going to automatically punt. I get that. He could have had a bad punt on that. But I'm just saying, on average, though, you're going to probably set them up at like the 15-yard line where you're punting at. And that's huge with that. Like you said, with 34 seconds left, 0 timeouts, those 5 yards can come back and really help you. It doesn't seem like it will, but it can. And I really do not understand that. And so I bring that up because it just seems like there were just so many things in that game where it's like, man, like we were just so dumb in these areas and that area and Cade and it's kind of like all wrapped up into one. And it's like, yeah, I mean, no wonder we lost 20-19 when we had no business losing that game.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's weird because you don't come out of the game too often where it's like you question almost like everything, right? And this game, from coaching decisions, from Cade to questioning, like, the execution was awful. The coaching, I feel like that Kirk got out coached. I really feel like that,
especially in the second half.
Yeah, a lot of questions again, and I thought a lot of it was answered after game one. And I know it's Illinois State, but I really felt like we showed some really good things. I thought it carried over to the second half. Or the first half of the game, the second game here against Iowa State. I thought Cade looked good early. We were running the ball, but not executing in the red zone is going to kill you. Leaving points on the board there is always going to kill you. And then I don't know what happened in the second half, dude. I think he had didn't your brother say it was like 3 completions to 2 interceptions and 2 interceptions in the second half? That is, say what you want about Cade, but that's
not good.
Inexcusable. Like you're a Division I quarterback. Inexcusable.
Yeah, you have to be better than that. I thought Iowa State did a good job in the second half. Their game plan in the second half was they started moving their safeties up, and their safeties are really good. And we talked about that on last week's preview. Is their safeties might be the best safety duo in the Big 12, but might be the best safety duo that we faced all year. And they started bringing them up, and they were just daring us to pass because they knew Cade, he's not going to.
They had seen early what we were doing, and they're like, okay, we got to try to take the run away, and just like every team, like Cade, try to beat you.
Yep. And they were confident that he wasn't going to, and sure enough, he didn't. Another play too, that just kind of switching to the defense, when we got up, or when they scored to make it 13-7. And I really loved how that next drive, because we didn't see this very often, like last year, for example, where we responded back with another touchdown. And it was cool to see us we just gave up a touchdown, man. But then we go back on offense and we go down the field, we score a touchdown. It's 19-7.
It's like it never happened. Yep.
We're feeling good again, because it's like, okay, we let them get their touchdown. You cannot give up a long ball where Jalen Noel, where he scored that 75-yard touchdown, or it might have been even longer than that. But you cannot give that up in that situation. Even if you told me right now that they end up scoring on that drive, but if they had to get it like in chunk plays, like bam, 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 like they had to go down the field, like make them earn their touchdown, take some time off. I'm still mad about that, but it's like, okay, whatever. You cannot give up a play like that. It's just, it's inexcusable. You can't let that happen. And Iowa's defense prides itself on those things not happening. And that's what I was a little worried about going into this game. We talked about it last week, was I was really worried about their receivers, and I had a feeling that they were going to connect on one ball down the field. My hope was though is it wasn't going to be like a touchdown where let's say they throw that ball downfield, we at least tackle them. If it's a 50-yard pass or a 40-yard pass, whatever.
Kind of
I
like
had a
what happened in the
feeling.
Illinois State game.
Yep. I knew it was going to happen at least once.
Yeah.
You cannot let that be that wide open for that touchdown where it's like that and they score already. You just can't let that happen. And also another thing too, with Iowa State's offense, I said going into the game, we got to make them one-dimensional. We got to just at least take away their running ability. We know what they're going to do, passing the football. Rocco's a good quarterback. They have good wide receivers. Just at least take away their running game. And it felt like we did, but in all reality, Iowa State did as good of a job as they could probably do running the football. They finished with 89 rushing yards, which doesn't seem like a lot, but that's just enough for them to be able to set up the passing game, right? We had to respect their run game just enough. I mean, they were getting, when they were running the football, 3-4 yards at a time sometimes. Sama finished with 58 yards. Doesn't seem like a lot, but against Iowa's defense, that is just enough. 89 yards is too much, I think. I really thought going into this game, if we absolutely shut down their rushing, keep them below 50 yards, where every time they ran the football, it was maybe 1 yard, maybe no yards, maybe blown up in the backfield. But they did just enough where they were getting 3 to 4 yards, where we at least had to respect it enough. And then that set up in the second half, them being able to pass the football and get guys wide open.
Yeah, you're right. And credit to them, they stuck with it just enough. Like you said, they didn't abandon it completely where Iowa could just, focus completely on the pass. They still had to respect Sama. He was running hard. I mean, I know, like you said, he didn't have a great stat line, but he did just enough what they needed to do to respect it. And, going back to that long ball, man, that is something that I just did not envision Phil Parker and that defense giving up in this game, because I thought that was the one thing where if you don't let them beat you deep, you make them earn everything. Like I said, you give yourself a chance to win. I don't know what happened on the play. I have to be honest, I haven't gone back and watched it yet because I'm still just shocked at how it ended. I'm sad. I'm disgusted. I don't even want to watch it right now.
Yeah.
So I need time to heal and to process everything. But I know it sounds like Xavier got completely fooled. He let him go by him, and he didn't play after the rest of the second half after that. I think Phil
Cohen
and Kirk
played.
pulled him. Yeah, Cohen played. I think he was kind of in the doghouse after that. So I have to go back and watch what happened. I know, Jay Higgins, taking some of the blow off of X there. He was saying how he should have been the one to kind of jam him, knock him off his route a little bit. I think he was just being a good team player right there. I think Xavier kind of blew the coverage, but yeah, and I know, again, you put so much on this defense, and that's what's hard is when what you do in the second half from our offense, you're asking the defense to just be perfect. And I've said this time and time again, as good as I think they can be, nobody's perfect, right? There's going to be a time or two that they mess up, and they messed up in a big way, and it killed us. After they scored that, I was like, oh boy, I am in
I felt really
panic mode. Yeah, I actually, and I'm not just saying this after
definitely
the fact.
tension in the air.
I definitely am like, this is a 50-50 game now. I mean, this is going to go either way. I have no idea if we're going to win this game. Just lot of things that I really didn't expect to see that did happen in this game, and it sucks because that's how you blow a game for sure.
Yeah, and I don't want to blame the defense too much because, man, you look at the stats, 2 for 14 on third downs. Iowa State had. It took them forever to finally get a first down. Their first down was because of a roughing the passer call. I mean, we were playing so good. Even the second half, it wasn't as good. But once again, gave up only 20 points. It's like, man, well,
I'm looking right at Con. We outgained them by 1 first down, 16-15. Third down efficiency, we were 6 of 17. They were 2 of 14. Total plays, we had 3 more total plays than them. We had the same amount of punts. They had more penalty yards, more penalties. Time of possession was about even. You would say, how the hell did we lose this game?
Yeah, especially when you look at the rushing yards. I know the passing yards wasn't good, but that's Iowa's bread and butter, setting up the running game, right? And so when you look at the rushing yards, you automatically think, especially at home, you win that football game. So
Yeah,
It's
200 to 89, 204 to 89. But that interception, I don't count the last one as a Hail Mary. That interception was so bad, and then not executing in the red zone.
you know.
Yeah.
Also, I talked about this on the reaction to last game. I was so pumped to see us. We only had one. It was like one of my favorite statistics of the Illinois State game. We only had one tackle for loss or on offense. Like we
Yep.
only,
That's a good
this
point.
game, it seemed like too many times. It was like the old ways where we got blown up in the backfield. Iowa State had 8 tackles for loss in this game. That you just can't let that happen. You cannot set up a 2nd and 13, a 2nd and 12,
Collin,
especially.
I counted 3 or 4 times in a row. I'm not kidding. I counted it in a row where on first down of when we got the ball, the first play of the first down, the first play of the drive, we would go negative or 0 yards.
Yeah, you
3 or
just
4
can't let
times
that
in a
happen.
row.
You just cannot let that happen.
That's when you're trying to play this game of like, man, you're being conservative, you're being predictable, and it's gonna bite you.
Yep.
Oh.
I think another thing too, and credit goes Iowa State because they took them out of the game, but not having one completion to Luke Lachey, an NFL caliber tight end who's going to be playing on Sundays, that is inexcusable too, because you go into this game and you hear about these injuries with Iowa State. Usually linebackers are on tight ends. I thought Luke Lachey was going to have a massive game, right? I thought we were going to use him in the middle of the field, stretch the defense a little bit, seam routes, things like that. I was envisioning a huge game for Luke Lachey and the tight ends. And it honestly, all the tight ends, like it was just a bad. I don't understand what we were doing now. Like I said, Iowa State had a good game plan. They knew, okay, if we shut down their tight ends, make the wide receivers who, yes, they're decent, but Vanderzee's also a true freshman, right? Jacob Gill hasn't played that much football. Like, make these young wide receivers kind of earn it. And that's what they did. But man, like that's inexcusable. You have to get your best receiver who is a tight end, who is going to be playing on Sundays. You got to get them the ball. And having 0 yards, 0 catches, that's inexcusable.
100%. That's one of the things we talked about right after the game. And there was a point in the game I was sitting next to Cody, and I'm like, because I had just thought of it. I'm like, have we gotten Luke Lachey a catch? And like Cody was like, I don't think, have we gotten any tight ends? And like, yeah, I'm looking now. We did one to Ostrenga and one to Ortworth for a total of 13 yards. What are we doing? That's on Tim. You gotta, if all else fails, you find a way to scheme open your tight end, your best players. You figure it out. I felt like we did that against Illinois State in the second half, where we would motion Lachey out, get him on a one-on-one, and get him a quick throw, and he'd get like 10 yards and a first down. Right? We find ways. You find ways to get your best players involved. You find ways to get Cade in a rhythm. I just felt like it was literally, this game plan was run or punt. Like that's really what it was. And yeah, that's playing with fire. Right.
2 things on offense. One last thing, but 2 things on it. I felt like we didn't do enough like jet sweeps at all. I thought like that could have been used a lot yesterday, especially when Iowa State was selling out on the run, especially when Caleb Johnson was there. When you're doing jet sweeps, keeping them at least respect the boundaries with like Caleb Brown. I mean, Caleb Brown's back, for God's sake. And he's one of your best playmakers. And so that's my second thing is I really felt like going into this game, we didn't have him last week. So Iowa State doesn't have any film or anything on this, but why not figure out ways to get Caleb Brown, your best playmaker, the ball, even if it's like a wide receiver screen, whether it's a short little route where, hey, he catches it, he might get 10 yards out of it, right? Yes. We didn't do any of that. Like it's things that I really
we were going to see that in this game. We thought we were going to see some of that, right?
Yeah, I did. I really did. I thought we were going to see more jet sweeps. I really thought we were going to see, because we didn't do it very much last week. We started in the second half because I think we just kind of were forced to. I don't think we were wanting to, but I thought this game, man, like that was going to be used a lot. I thought we were going to run a lot of jet sweeps, especially with the way Caleb Johnson was running down the field. Can you imagine just having that where, we ever so often did a jet sweep to Caleb Brown, Jacob Gill, Caden Weegan, right?
Yeah.
Terrell Washington, your fast playmakers that can get to the edge. I know we did it one time, I think in the red zone, right? We did it one time in the red zone to or was it? I thought it was Jacob Gill, but regardless, maybe it
It
was
was
Terrell.
Terrell on a little push pass.
Okay. So then I think we did it twice in because I know Jacob Gill
Okay.
also had one as well. So just not enough. And like I said, not getting Caleb Brown, your best playmaker. And I think Colby said before the game that he got, he has that text with Chad Lastico that,
Yeah.
he'll text out to everybody. And he said how he's like, watch for Caleb Brown to, I forgot what the words were, but like he's going to kind of be eased back into it. Don't expect much from him today. Like that's what kind of Colby was saying. I'm like what? Like what the heck? It's like, what are we doing? Like, come on.
I hate that because you just mentioned he's one of the best players on the team. He's one of the
Yeah.
most explosive players that you have on offense. And that's, again, where you scheme open your best players. And to have him go 0 for as well, you're telling me Caleb Brown and Luke Lachey didn't get a catch. Yeah, I would say, yeah, that on paper, I know, and again, you look at the rushing, you go, how does Iowa lose? That's maybe one of the reasons why, right?
Yeah.
So
as we sit here today and
where do we go from here, man?
Moving forward, and that's what it sucks because, part of me is like, okay, it's only week 2. Let's get back. Like we still have a long season, but this game, and I said going into this game, it's such a big game for Iowa because you can't really afford to lose this game, especially when you're talking playoffs. I know now that just sounds stupid, but like, I mean, there was a reason why we were talking it though, because of how experienced this team was, the schedule, right? And you just can't afford to lose at home against Iowa State. You just can't. Now, the season isn't over. I'm not saying that, but it's like an uphill climb now, and especially when you have Ohio State lurking in the background here in about 4 weeks, where that's an automatic loss. I hate saying that as a fan, but that's an automatic loss. Like we're not winning that game in Columbus, especially, our defense will probably play pretty good, but our offense will still struggle and will give up points. And the next thing you know, it'll be 30 some or 40 some to 7. And it's just like, damn, we let that game get away from us. So like, I mean, that's a loss. Right. And so even at that, like, let's say we win all the rest of the games, but 10-2, that's a good season again, but that's not getting you to the playoffs. That's not getting you to what we were envisioning before the year, where it's like, man, this team has what it takes. Did we think it was going to happen? Like for me, I was very hesitant. I said 11-1, but there was still a part of me that's like, yeah, I mean, why can't we with our defense? With some of the players on offense, with the new offensive coordinator, with the belief that, hey, the offense should be just slightly better. We both said, we got to temper expectations. And so far, and we got not yelled at, but some people kind of came after us for saying that, but we've kind of been right so far, right? The offense, I mean, you can see that it's better, right? Yep. It's better.
There's areas and there's glimpses of progress being made, but the overall offense, it hasn't changed enough to get to where we want to be. But no, Colby, real quick, Colby said it perfectly after the game. It just changes the complexity of the season. It changes your outlook on maybe some of the goals that some of us fans had for Iowa. Big picture, like you said, the playoffs, that's looking tough right now. And then, short term, it really makes you wonder about some of these games on the schedule that you thought maybe differently going into the season.
Yeah, I do think Iowa, and they're always so good at this, like bouncing back after disappointing loss because of the leadership and some of the guys that are in the room.
Culture,
and that's one thing Kirk is really good at, is getting the players to respond. So I'm not worried about that. I'm not worried that, okay, just because we lost yesterday, that this season is completely like we're gonna only go 6-6 now. Like that's not, when I say that type of stuff, that's not what I'm thinking. I'm just saying like it just sucks knowing that, like, man, like what our all-time goal was is honestly kind of out the door. Now it's not completely over yet, but it just feels like it kind of is. And that's what is so unfortunate. We can still have a good year. I mean, there's no question about that, but it's really hard after, a game like that yesterday with, once again, we just should not have lost that game. We just shouldn't have. And if your offense is just a little bit better, right, where you can just kind of hammer them. I mean, that game could have been over a lot sooner, right, than it did, but we let them just kind of stay in it. And that's never good. That's never a good thing. So Well, that will do it for this episode. I think we did a pretty good job of kind of hashing some things out. It does feel good doing these episodes because there's so much that, especially like the day after, I'm driving home. I have a long drive back home, and you have all these things in your mind, and you're just like, man, like, and so it's good to like,
it's therapeutic for sure.
Yeah, it is. It is. It really is. So, well, that will do it for this episode. We'll be back later this week going over the Troy game this week. Got to bounce back. It once again, it's just, it sucks. There's still that just pain in my stomach, but it is what it is. I guess that's what.
Forward.
Yep, that's sports for you. You're never gonna. It's never gonna be fun or easy all the time. It's always, especially with Iowa football, they always seem to break your heart one way or the other. But all right, guys, well, have a good rest of your week and go Hawks.